Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we got a care package here from Arccaptain. Now, we recently did a review on one of their MIG 205 MP Pro welders, which was a multi-processor unit. Check out that video. I'll link in the description below if you're interested in a MIG welder that can process TIG, stick, plasma cutting, and a special weld cleaning tool. But on this video, if you're looking for something simple and you're more in the arc welding, stick welding category, this welder is Arccaptain's newest welder. This one right over here is the Arccaptain 205 Arc Pro. And as you can see, it replaces the Arc 165 Pro. And this one has new features, and I'm gonna unbox it here, tell you guys some of the benefits and the features that this machine does have. Now, first things first, this is how the box comes shipped, and you can see I'm just tossing it around because this whole welder weighs only 8.2 pounds, so very nice, compact, and affordable, starting at around $170 for everything included right over here. Wow, and first impression, this thing looks like a toy. Wow, this thing is literally the smallest thing that I've personally worked with. Now, I have a couple welders here, and one of the welders being my Prime Weld 225X, and look at the difference. Look at the difference between these two. And the beauty of this, and the reason I got it, is this is such a small, convenient package, and it gets those quick jobs that I personally do under vehicles, welding exhaust when they're leaking. Instead of carrying this that weighs probably close to 50 pounds, you got an 8-pound, very convenient Arccaptain Arc 205 Pro. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty about this machine. So this is the contents of the package. Obviously, you have the nice little welder. You do have a welding cover, so I actually like these. They sell these for all the welders, I believe. Like my MIG 205 Pro also had it, so that's nice. You see it opens up, you can carry it, it's covered. If you're putting it in storage for a long time, actually really nice, because you can see this welder, I just use a big garbage bag to cover it up to keep it clean. So it's actually really nice that Arccaptain thinks about those people that are hobbyists and store their stuff for a long time until they have to jump back in there for those repairs. So the welder standard does come with the 240 volt plug, and it does have an adapter that adapts it to your standard 120. We are running it in the garage. We don't have the higher voltage, so we're going to be running it on the lower voltage as well. It does include a strap that you can mount right over here, so you can just toss this over your shoulder, and if you're on a ladder, just keep this on your side, and it's light enough where you won't even really feel it, and you can adjust the parameters on the go as it's on your shoulder. Now, going over here, you got your ground. The ground looks really good, very comparable to the better grounds that you see out there. No complaints on it. These cables are 10-foot cables, and they are pretty flexible. The hoses are nice and flexible, at least in this temperature, which today it's about 90 degrees. Sometimes when it gets colder out, some of these hoses get stiffer, but so far these feel great, and I think they'll hold up good even in colder temperatures. Now, this is the stick holder. Again, 10-foot cable. Cable is the same material. This is the holder itself. This is my only ding. about this setup right now. This definitely does seem like a budget option for the stinger holder. Not my favorite way and grip for this, so I gotta give it a little ding on that itself. But you do get your little hammer here to knock off the slag from the stick welding, and a little brush here as well. You can clean off those welds. They do include 10 pieces of stick. This is the E6013 welding rod. I think this is 1/8 inch. So personally, I don't weld anything that's really thick, so this is much bigger than I will be using, but I will be testing out this welder with some of the other materials that we have. And those materials include the E6013 1/16 rod from Harbor Freights. I use these for welding small pieces such as exhausts that we welded on my brother's BMW M5. And we can test out also the Vulcan E6013 3/32 rod. Also, you do get some stickers right over here. If you have any problems with the machine, you can definitely reach out to them for warranty reasons and whatnot. Now, this machine does come with a 3-year warranty that's advertised on their website. I know on the box itself it says 2 years, so I'm not sure if they updated their warranty to 3 years now, but their website, which I believe would be the more updated version for this company, is a 3-year warranty. And it does come with the owner's manual as well, so all the instructions are listed in here how to operate the machine, and it specifies the duty cycles for the machine, and it compares it to the Arc 165, and this is the new Arc 205 Pro. So you can also see that those duty cycles are actually listed right over here, which is the same thing that's in the owner's manual. I'll put a screenshot in here for those fanatics that are really spec specific. So one thing I want you guys to know before you purchase anything, so you're well aware of what you're buying, this is a DC stick welder and a DC lift TIG welder. All right, so what that means is you can't weld aluminum with this welder. And the DC stick, let me explain that real quick. A lot of these electrodes, you can run DC or AC on it. For example, this Vulcan electrode, it says the operating current runs AC or DC, and it gives you the voltage amperage range. So when you are welding, make sure you match your rods appropriately to what this welder can do, and also the type of jobs that you can do with this welder. Some might be more ideal than others. For example, when I was welding my exhaust, it actually recommended I weld in AC frequency. So luckily my other welder had AC, and it provided a cleaner weld. But again, just so you match what this welder is capable of, make sure you get the proper sticks for it. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a DC welder, but you can also weld in DC electrode positive or DC electrode negative. Again, you're going to want to check your electrode and see what the best welding strategy is for your welding needs. But depending on how you weld it, electrode positive, you put the stinger on the positive and the negative clamp into the negative. And if you're welding DC electrode negative, you actually do the opposite. You put the stinger on the negative and the negative ground into the positive. So you got some versatility using DC, but again, it's not an AC compatible arc welder. So again, this is a DC stick welder, and it also is a DC TIG welder, but it's lift TIG. It's not high frequency TIG. And what that means is you're gonna have to scratch the tungsten on the surface to ignite that spark. Personally, I'm really used to high frequency starts, so this might not be for everybody. This welder also has synergy mode, and what that means is it's like an AI built in. It tells you and builds you a custom specification as far as the amperage goes based on what you're welding. So you're just going to give it some information as far as the material thickness, the rod size, and it's going to give you an amperage set that's most ideal for those settings. This machine, as well as a lot of the Arccaptain machines, also have something really cool, which is Bluetooth. You can connect your phone in here, and there's an app that you download from Arccaptain, and you literally can control everything on your phone as far as whether you want to do MMA, whether you want to do TIG, whether you want to lower the amperage, change the settings. So if your machine is far away from you on the ground, or if you're under the car, instead of going out of the car, changing the amperage physically on the machine, just take out your phone, change the buttons, and much easier, much simpler. And this day and age, that's a really cool feature, integrating phones with the welding machines. All right, let's go over some of the features over here that highlight the Arccaptain 205. It has IGBT technology, and what that means is it's the engine, pretty much the hardware inside, that makes the machine lighter, more energy efficient, and it's able to deliver smooth, stable power. That's how they make this welder only 8 pounds, and it can perform like a much bigger welder. Now, it does have hot starts, and what that means is it boosts the current at the beginning of the weld. You guys know arc welding is very tricky, and a lot of times your rod is gonna get stuck to the metal. Well, the hot start actually makes the arc strikes a lot easier, especially on tricky rods like the 7018, and it prevents the rod from sticking when you are first touching it down. The anti-stick right over here, so what that is, if the rod does stick to the workpiece, the machine cuts the current automatically. So normally it's current in the rod, and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter. So this saves your electrode from burning up and makes it easier to pull off without frying your workpiece. The arc force right over here. So the arc force, when the arc gets too short, right? So when your electrode is very close to the puddle, the welder actually automatically increases current. So this prevents the rod from burning out and helps keep the penetration strong. So it's especially handy in overhead or vertical welds where the puddle can get cold. It also does have the VRD, which is the voltage reduction device, and it's a safety feature that lowers the open circuit voltage when the welder is just idling. So it protects the user from accidental shock. Let's say if you touch the electrode or work clamp while not actively welding. It's a safety feature that's important in damp environments or when working outdoors. So it also does have multiple protections, and so some of the features that it has overcurrent protection. If the current goes above safe operating limits, the welder automatically cuts off or reduces power. It prevents damage to the machine circuits and protects your rods and workpiece from being overheated. It also has over voltage protection, so it safeguards the inverter when incoming power is unstable or spikes. It is useful if you're running on a generator when there's surges that are common. It also has the overheat protection, which the unit has a built-in thermal sensor. If it overheats from continuous use, like duty cycle exceeds, it just shuts down temporarily until it cools. It prevents burnout of internal components. Now, it also does have a smart fan, so the smart fan is going to kick on or off as it needs to, so it's not continuously on full speed. It self-adjusts based on the demands of the welder. Looking at the front of the welder, it's a very simple welder. You got your positive electrode and your negative electrode. You have a control knob for your amperage, and you got 3 buttons here that toggle between settings. On the back end, you have your fan, and you just have your on and off button. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and flip the switch on this machine. All right, as you can see right now, we are in stick mode, and when you toggle this button, it will adjust the amperage. So the maximum amperage on this 110 volt power supply, we have 150 amps. And this green bar actually, as you can see, it represents how much power you're actually using. So the lowest amperage right now on 120 is 20 amps. So let's toggle through the modes. Right over here we have Synergy Stick, and this is Lift TIG. So as you can see, there are 3 modes. This is your regular arc welding with Synergy, which again, Synergy, as we described earlier, is it's gonna create the optimal settings, and we'll go over them as well. And again, your lift tick settings. So let's start off with your regular arc welding. Let's say you're a seasoned veteran, you're gonna create your own settings. So here we are. So let's say we're welding with the 1/16 ER 6013, which they recommend 20 to 40 amps. So let's select it to about 40 amps right over here. Now, now this button right over here is non-optionable for the MMA welding, but we'll get into that when we go into Synergy. Now let's go with the FN button, which right over here, it's gonna tell us our hot start. We can, even though we're welding at 40, just to get a nice clean arc, we can adjust it to a maximum of 60. Or if we wanna do, let's say we wanna do 50 amps right at startup, and then once it hot starts, it goes back to 40 amps, just to get those clean jobs without always sticking your rod in the material. Now, so again, we were running 40 amperage. We're gonna have 50 amps of hot start. And right over here, we have the arc force. So in case I do wanna dip the rod into the material and it wants to die out, it actually can juice up the amperage. So again, we're welding at 40, 50s are hot start, and let's say we want to do 60 for the arc force, just so we don't blow out the arc. So the last thing that's on this option is material size in inches. So you can select your material size and it's gonna give you the more ideal amperage setting here. And there you guys are, you're set up for your MMA mode in manual settings. Okay, now so let's go over to the Synergy mode. If we go over to Synergy mode, it's gonna give us an option of what rod material size we are using. So you can toggle those rod size material with this button right over here. We have 1/16, 2/25, 3/32, 1/8, and so forth. Now, as you can see, as I toggle through them, the amperage changes between each one because it optimally selects a good starting amperage for that material size. Now that's a good baseline for the beginners because it's going to give you a range where you should be starting off with. So let's say with this 1/8 rod that we have, so even though it gives you a baseline of 133 here, if you're welding and you're not seeing good results, you can still adjust it a little bit lower from the Synergy setting, or you can adjust it a little bit higher from the midpoint, whatever suits your needs. Unfortunately, with the Synergy mode, you are not able to now select your hot start and arc force settings. That is only done in your manual MMA mode, that you can select the hot start and the arc force. One thing I want to mention for those welding high amps in manual MMA mode, your hot start only goes to 60 and your arc force only go to 100. So for example, let's say you're already maxed out welding something really thick. That hot start's not doing you anything. That's only for low amperage operations, as well as the arc force, because you're already getting way more power out of the box just selecting 150. So pretty much anything over 60 to 100 amps, the hot start and the arc force is not usable. All right, and if you do want to decrease the voltage when the machine is idling, which is the VRD, it's not actually on right away. What you have to do, you press these two buttons simultaneously for about 3 seconds, and VRD will turn on. As you can see, it is turned on, and again, that you can see on the top corner. So when the machine's idling, it actually lowers the voltage and amperage to your devices so you don't accidentally shock yourself. Okay, so now let's go to the lift TIG mode, and on the lift TIG mode, as you can see, the lowest amperage we can run on 120 is 20, and the maximum amperage we can run is 150. Now once you get into this lift TIG mode, as you can see, there are no other options that we can change, so it's completely a manual setup for the lift TIG mode. So alright, so we pretty much ran through all the arc welding MMA settings on this welder, but let's talk a little bit about the TIG welding on this welder. Now looking at this, there's no standard gas lens that goes into the machine like traditional machines, and that's because if you want to TIG weld with this welder, you have to buy their TIG torch set that is specific to these kind of welders, and they operate a little bit differently than your traditional welder because the torch itself has the gas line that goes directly into your argon tank, and you're going to be able to control the gas flow from the torch itself. So although it's handy and you could get away with TIG welding on this machine, I personally think this is more of a dedicated optimal stick welder, and I'll tell you why. Using a dedicated TIG torch, you definitely don't have a foot pedal, and it's lift TIG, so you have to touch the tungsten on the material you're welding. A lot of times using this method, if you're not a real veteran at lift TIG welding, you're gonna get dirt and material dipped on the tungsten, and you're gonna go through a lot of tungstens. Also, this way of welding TIG, you control the gas through a nozzle here that you open and close. It's not gonna turn on when you hit the power button and start TIG welding, or turn off automatically. A lot of these newer machines that are dedicated TIG machines, you know, once you do the high frequency start, that's when there's pre-flow and post-flow. Well, with this setup, using this machine, it is gonna always run argon until you manually close it off. So if you don't want to waste a lot of argon, this might not be the machine for you. But if you just have a quick job that you just want to TIG weld, you're not worried about using a little bit more argon than normal, you can still definitely get away TIG welding using this machine. Again, if you want just a stick welder, you can pay $170 that I believe it's going for right now. But if you want to include the TIG torch and use this machine for lift TIG welding, there is a little bit of a price increase for the extra material. I'll list it right over here down below. Alright guys, well that concludes the Arccaptain Arc 205 Pro DC stick and DC lift TIG welder from Arccaptain. If you guys like the review, go ahead, make sure you hit that like button and comment your thoughts below about this awesome little welder right over here. And let me know what you guys think as far as the price for the capabilities. Now also, if you guys are interested, I'm going to have a link in the description below. If you guys are interested in purchasing the Arccaptain, go ahead, follow that link. I do make a little bit of commission from that link itself. But yeah, that's the setup. If you guys are looking for starting off welding, I think this is a great opportunity. If you guys are in the industry where you're doing AC, then I definitely recommend either having another welder or another welder that's multi-process AC/DC. But for the DC capabilities, for the price, for the compactness of this little welder, I think it's an awesome little budget welder. And again, I'm gonna love taking this under the vehicle when I'm welding exhausts compared to moving my behemoth of a welder here. So it does have its pros. Again, it does have some cons with the lift TIG and the argon consumption on those torch sets, but that's something for you to decide whether you're gonna be able to live with it or if you want a dedicated welder for TIG. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. I ain't here for the money.